Welcome to Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. We are celebrating a big milestone today. This is episode number 200 of this podcast. When we started, the idea was to have in-depth conversations with sound artists about their work. So for episode number 1, we went up to Skywalker Ranch and sat down with Randy Tom, the director of sound design at Skywalker Sound, which was a great way to kick things off. Both Dolby and this podcast have changed a lot since we started. Back then, Dolby Vision was just a prototype that was in a lab at Dolby headquarters. Now, Dolby Vision is a very real thing that you can experience today on your TV at home, in the cinema, and even on your phone. So on this podcast, we talk not just to sound artists, but also to directors, writers, cinematographers, animators, and yes, even colorists. That's why I am thrilled for episode 200 to take a field trip to the headquarters of Company 3 here in Santa Monica, California, to sit down with legendary colorist Stefan Sonnenfeld. If you don't know Stefan, you certainly know his work. Some of his recent projects include Top Gun Maverick, The White Lotus, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. His credit list includes some of the biggest franchises in our business, including Star Wars, Star Trek, Jurassic Park, Pirates of the Caribbean, Transformers, and many, many more. And Stefan has worked with some of the biggest names in our business. Just a few of the A-list directors and producers he has worked with are Tony Scott, Ridley Scott, Michael Mann, Martin Scorsese, Tom Cruise, Michael Bay, Bradley Cooper, Spike Jonze, Tim Burton, J.J. Abrams, and Judd Apatow. So how did Stefan become what can only be described as an A-list colorist here in Hollywood? Let's find out.
Well, I started this company as a colorist to provide color services for clients to give them the most creative flexibility with the sort of highest level of and newest and most creative level of technology and infrastructure. So coloring is basically just what you do, what one does every day. They just enhance images to their liking or to evoke different emotions or to, as directed by a director or a cinematographer or the client, if you will. And we have the tools that basically enable us now, especially now, not 25 years ago, but to basically do whatever is in our head or the client's head to manipulate and color an image so that it is the desired outcome of what everybody wants and everybody's talking about. And a lot of that is the interpretation of the conversation that goes sort of like AI in a way. It's like if you don't know what to say in AI, you don't really get a great outcome. And it's sort of an interesting sort of parallel there. So that's why I think our business is so interesting, because it's so nuanced that it can't really, you can't really necessarily just put in text form what I'm thinking or interpreting from somebody's conversation or direction.
Well, since you brought that up, I'm kind of curious tell me a little bit about your working relationship with a director and how that process plays itself out in this environment.
Well, it's not just the director; it's a lot of people now, but depending on who is sort of more in charge of the creative, that person, whether it's the director, the DP, or both, or the producer, whomever it might be, it starts at the very beginning, actually, and it always has for us, but more so now in general. We talk within the pre-production sort of planning stages of a project, whether it's advertising or short form, long form, and we talk about the intentions. How best to achieve those, how best to achieve sort of the workflow. Also, cost is an issue these days, and especially all the time, actually, and you have to kind of understand how that all fits in an appropriate way. And then you work through those conversations to establish lookup tables, color profiles that help the image on set look sort of like what's intended or really close to what's intended or not at all like what's intended. And then we take those at a later stage through editorial and post, color, finishing, and we manipulate those images even further. Sometimes exactly the same way, sometimes exactly as the DP intended, and sometimes exactly the opposite of what was intended. So we have a lot of flexibility and range, and that's coupled with the visual effects now and the finishing aspects of stuff. So it's a team sport. Everybody plays a part in it, and it's why it's so enjoyable for me. And you have to involve a lot of people. But in general, the director, let's say that's the main person, you have to have a good relationship with that person, and you have to be able to interpret what they're saying and get that, onto the screen, and to do it quite quickly too, because it's a lot of effort and work and money that goes into these projects. Yeah. So, and some people talk in technical terms, and some people, like a Michael Mann, for instance, talk through emotions. Like, hey, Enzo's very this in the scene, and he's feeling this, and this is what's going to happen, and this is what just happened, and therefore this is what I want. And I'm sort of interpreting that in a color way and put it on the screen, and he'll be like, great, that's it. Or no, that's not what I meant. It should be, this.
Well, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that. So, a director like Michael Mann is talking to you from an emotional standpoint, and then how do you actually translate that into color, density, what you do in image manipulation?
Well, that's what I do, and that's my skill set, and that's why I think coming out of college and just getting a summer job in post-production, I just landed in something, luckily, that I was good at. It's sort of hard sometimes to ask somebody who's really good at something, and I'm not saying I'm really good, I'm just saying in general, how they do stuff, because there's definitely a lot of practice and experience, but also the cultural background. I grew up in Europe. I grew up in Greece. My mom was born in Greece. My dad was born in Germany and fled during the war and went to China. And so a lot of the experiences and just background that I have in general plays a part in everything that we do, because we hearken back to some of the things we've learned, some of the things we've experienced, some of the books we've read, some of the art we know and have experienced. And then also, obviously whatever you're working on within that respective genre or story or whatever, you're trying to evoke certain things. I mean, it's a latent tool, coloring, where you really don't notice it sometimes until it's done wrong. And interestingly, we're sitting here in a Dolby conversation. I find that a lot of people don't necessarily get Dolby right a lot of the time. And if you don't do that right, it could be very difficult to watch sometimes.
Tell me more.
I'm curious
about that. Yeah. It's a very powerful tool, right?
And a very powerful tool, because you have such a wide color gamut. So if P3 was like this, Dolby Vision's like this, and you have this billions more shades of colors and incredibly more rangy contrast levels. And although the blacks appear to be deeper, you're actually seeing more into the blacks, and the whites, you see way more into the highlights that you weren't seeing. That's why I've encouraged people constantly, especially now that we've come into sort of newer technologies and cheaper storage and all that stuff, to start trying to operate within the whole pipeline with Dolby Vision HDR, because it's just what you see, your eye sees, more like what your eye sees. So why wouldn't we want that all through the process? So I'm a big champion of that, and we're actually working on some cool projects now that I think will start incorporating all of that into the pipeline, which is really awesome.
You talked a little bit about Dolby Vision from a technical standpoint, but I'm kind of curious to get your response to it as an artist and a storyteller. Like, what were some storytelling moments that got opened up for you as a result of having HDR and Dolby Vision?
In general, I feel like it's a more nuanced and rangy image. So I find there's more depth, more dimension. It's more dynamic, it's more kinetic if it's that sort of scene or the work that you've actually done. It's more real and tangible, and so it feels super special, and it's very uncommon for anybody not to come in a room and be sort of blown away by it and say, oh my God, wow, the premiere has to be this. What is this? I've never seen anything like it, because we're pushing the boundaries of, ironically, what our own body is seeing all the time, but the classic projection on, xenon projector in P3 is not anything close to the dimensionality and the depth of everything, contrast, color, and what the eye actually perceives, and also what you're seeing. So in a normal traditional movie theater. So it's really remarkable. One of the reasons why I actually like seeing stuff at home on my Dolby Vision TV set, because you're seeing more of what you're expecting to see, and especially for me, it's a great representation. Listen, I love the cinematic look. I love film more than anybody. And I've done more cool films and crazy looks and things than anybody too. But it's all even more exciting and palatable and just enjoyable when you see it in a format that actually expresses what you're really trying to show people. So it's really a powerful tool, which is why back in the day when we originally saw this for the first time, when I originally saw it for the first time, I was just like, holy. Well, I'll never forget the quote from Michael Bay when I first showed him. This is exactly what he said. He literally went, "Oh my God, I've been waiting my whole life for this." Literally, that's the first thing he said. And that's one of 50, amazing people that I showed the format to back in the day with Mike Rockwell and others who were.
Because you were part of one of the first people who brought Dolby Vision into your
Correct.
workflow.
Through originally, actually, JJ and Mike, I think, knew each other. JJ Abrams, good friend of mine, great filmmaker.
And Mike Rockwell was part of the development team of
correct.
For Dolby Vision.
He was a major part of that, and so they got together with me and we hooked up and saw this like huge monitor that was very loud with a big fan and or multiple big fans but it was
cooled, all of that,
and it was crazy because we all knew what we were potentially going to be working with and the color gamut that we'd be working within, and it was so exciting. And like I said, every single person, I mean, I can name 50 names. Every single person saw this and was just like, "Oh my God, this is insane. How do we get it?" So, and then therein lies, was the problem, is how do we bring this to the marketplace affordably, quickly, respectfully, and all that sort of thing. So it's a really interesting journey, and I'm so happy that it's been accepted worldwide. And it's basically, if you have any new technical equipment, it's all Dolby Vision, and you pretty much see it like that on your iPad or your phone or your TV or Apple TV, whatever it is,
What do you feel like creatives are kind of responding the strongest to in Dolby Vision? Is it the black levels? Is it highlights? Is it color? Is it all the above?
I think it's all the above, not to mention the articulation of the sharpness of the image too, because it's a laser projection, remember. So you're seeing things more clearly. They're a little sharper. A lot of people always say, "Oh my God, I've never seen our effects look like this. I've never seen the dimension. I've never seen the depth. I've never seen the detail. I can see out the window when it used to be just black, white blown out image. Now all of a sudden I see clouds and I see our effects." And so, typically
sometimes that's good and sometimes it creates issues.
Well, that's why you need to do it from the beginning. That's the whole point. How could you not? If you hear this and you're like, "Well, makes perfect sense to me. Why wouldn't you do that?" But nobody's doing it. So this is where, again, therein lies the post-production challenge from a cost perspective as well, creatively and cost effectively. So listen, we all want it. We're all working towards it. And on any major show, we're doing a Dolby Vision theatrical distribution. And on every show, we're doing Dolby Vision for the most part for home video. So it's there, and the circuitries and everything. And that coupled with the sound. This room is Dolby Atmos certified. All my big theaters are. All Company 3's big theaters are, because I found it so incredible also from an audio perspective. And our CTO, previous CTO, Mike Scheido, new one's Bob Keski, but both are big audio people, and Mike especially is this audiophile. So we've always enjoyed having our rooms. A lot of times people would come in the room and say, "God, don't listen to the sound here, it's terrible." And now they go, "Wow, the sound sounds exactly like the mix stage." And it's because we've put Dolby Atmos So, and we don't listen to it necessarily always in Dolby Atmos, but we can play, and it's a mix certified sound room too. So and Dolby services us, they take care of us. So it's also, we have a great partnership there too.
I think that's really smart. I mean, I started my career in post-production, and then before Dolby, and I used to run Skywalker Sound, and before that I was head of post-production and propaganda films. We probably worked with a lot of the same directors. Steve Golan, Yanni Sigvatson, yeah. But it was always so frustrating because you'd be finishing a film and you'd have to go to one place to sign off on the picture and to a different place to sign off on the sound, and you could never have that whole experience at the same time.
I mean, we piped in mixes in here just to listen to them because the directors don't have time to go to the mix, and they're like blown away. So again, the partnership with Dolby's been a long one, and we're proud to say that we've been involved at the beginning in a lot of ways. I don't endorse anything or stand by anything that isn't great, and I won't ever. And if I'm associated with it or doing a piece on it, it's because I truly enjoy it, use it, believe in it, love it.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason. I rarely do these things, and that's why I'm excited to do this.
So I'm probably skating on thin ice with this question, but I'm gonna go there anyway. I think my experience is every time we introduce a new technology, there's a lot of excitement around it. I can think about Dolby Atmos, even in the early days of 7.1. There's a lot of excitement, and then I feel like people go a little crazy with the new tool, and then things kind of calm down. You alluded to sort of some pitfalls about Dolby Vision. Where do you think people go wrong?
Coloring's a tricky business, and we've been doing it our whole lives, Company 3 that is, and I think we're the only company that really has a real business that's like based around that. And all of our guys and girls are amazing, and we work really hard at our color science, John Cortell and Emily Faw. We have great color scientists. We have great clients, like Bradley Cooper on Maestro and Star is Born and John Krasinski on it. I mean, these guys all embrace it and all enjoy it and work with us as a team, creative team, to enhance their product so that it's even more enjoyable for the consumer and the audience. And we get just as excited as the audience does, more so sometimes. And it's just, Dolby is really powerful, but when you have so much flexibility and control, in the wrong hands, it gets a little tricky. So I would venture to say I've seen things have gone awry, and not from here, but if you do it right and if you know what you're doing, it's a wonderful, beautiful tool for us creatively. And one of the many ways that you can experience content these days.
Do you have a different approach? Well, I presume the answer is yes. What's the difference in the approach if you're doing a Dolby Vision home video grade versus a theatrical grade?
Well, it's tricky because the range is so much that, and the nit level, the brightness sometimes is, it's twice, and Dolby 108 for theatrical is like a little more than twice as bright. For home video, it's much, much brighter typically. So you need to be really careful to control the specular highlights and various different things that could take you out of a movie, because you're allowing some of the contrast to just go nuts, and utilizing the full range of the format, which is tricky and not necessarily what you want to do all the time. So what we try to do is come up with a plan initially and understand what we want creatively, and then try to emulate that within all formats. But with the Dolby format specifically, because that's what we're talking about, we like to incorporate some of those incredible rangy opportunities in some of the certain scenes throughout those. But it changes. Like, you can change the brightness in different shots and different scenes, and you do that according to how you want to tell the story and how you want the audience to react and see the film, or television or streaming, whatever it is, whatever the content is. So again, it's just more tools, more variabilities, which is why it's tricky. But nevertheless, if done properly, like just astonishingly beautiful and stunning, and what everybody, I mean, even I say sometimes it almost looks 3D because you just have this crazy depth of color and contrast. And you're just like, and Dolby 3D is insane because it's super bright, and the perception of color is real and normal, not dim and dull like your average 3D. And so it's just displays the dimensionalization that we've worked really hard on, all the filmmakers and our creative and our SDFX team. We do a lot of the 3D for a lot of different films. It just becomes, again, even more incredible to watch and more powerful. So it really enhances some of the other things that the filmmakers intended, sort of unknowingly. And that's another great byproduct of this format.
What do you think the effect is on the audience of having that enhancement and dynamic range and color space?
Well, I mean, the connoisseurs love it. There are people who only go to AMC Dolby Vision theaters, Dolby Atmos. They want the whole experience. Those are those marquee theaters in all the marquee cities, and it's wonderful. But I think anybody who hasn't seen it needs to explore it and try it, because that's when they'll see the same thing, and it's usually a pretty quick reaction. Yeah. It's usually like, whoa, this is incredible. This is I literally was talking to Bradley Cooper about it a few days ago. We're working on this film with Blake Lively, and we were talking about Dolby Vision and how it just enhances the beautiful sort of all the components of what you're sort of after as a filmmaker, just enhances them in so many amazing ways. So it's just, again, you have to experience it. Just like Dolby Atmos, like you don't experience it, you don't even know how to comprehend and articulate it until you sit in a room and hear like your demo reel and hear that rain that's like all over. Right. You're like immersed. You're like, you feel like you're in a rainstorm in every way, and it's just so many different cool things that you guys do with that demo reel, and it's just incredible. So it's sort of that startling of a difference. Yeah. Compared to how we normally look at things in the theaters today. Yeah.
You talked about this, but I just, for my own personal curiosity, I have to ask you, what's your home theater setup? How are you watching, movies and episodic content?
So believe it or not, I'm so entrenched in work and always working, unfortunately, or fortunately, knock on wood, fortunately. I just am not that concerned, as one would think, with my home setup, because I'm usually too exhausted and I just get in bed. But what I do have is a wonderful, wonderfully tuned Panasonic TV that we've helped with, and they have Dolby circuitry, Dolby Vision circuitry for both the visuals and the audio, the video and the audio, the picture and the audio, and we've helped with them. We've helped develop that with Panasonic. And I have the newest, like Apple TV, so everything I see pretty much is HDR, and I flip to the HDR for sports too when I can. It's just, my preferred way of watching things. Anything on the phone defaults to that, and iPads, the new iPads and phones. So in general, especially in brighter light, you just get this imagery that's stunning. And it's sort of screen agnostic, if you will. It's just like, it's always looking great no matter where you see it, if it's in this format, which is super nice.
Do you feel like, is Dolby Vision giving you a higher level of confidence that people at home are seeing something the way that you intended for it to be seen?
I don't know if they necessarily realize that, but it is for sure. So every time I do something and I watch something I do, I'm never surprised. I'm always pleasantly surprised. Surprised in a bad way, always pleasantly surprised that it's great. But I'm comfortable with that because of how Company 3 works and the color science and all our great colorists and the team supporting it. And we're all, it's just such a great group, and we all know what we're doing, and we consistently, I've had comments recently on a bunch of films from some very discerning people telling me that from every format, whether I send them a file and it's SDR to HDR to Dolby to theatrical to home video, whatever they're looking at, it's the same, and they get the right experience. Most of which, except for the P3 theatrical, is Dolby Vision. That's what we're proud of. That's what we do. That's what we're good at. And, it's a lot of work. We've been doing it a long time, though, so we just keep refining, and you guys do too. Your CMUs, your color management, the down converting of your HDR to SDR through your CMU boxes has gotten a lot better too. And so I'm much more amenable and excited about that process too now than I used to be, because it's a good, great representation of our original intent through the HDR, Dolby Vision master. And so that's also been working nicely. You've given us more flexibility with more controls. So that's been super helpful.
So is it kind of a preferred workflow to do your original creative work in Dolby Vision and HDR and then make your SDR? And
it just depends. If you're doing a Netflix show that's never ever going to see theatrical, let's say, even though they have theatrical releases, we start in HDR. Sometimes there's a lot of again, like I said, what's the creative intent? How do we want the movie to look in all formats so that the creative intent is carried over into the HDR, SDR, whatever format, again, screen agnostic. And that's something that we work on, and it's all different for everybody. So, but yeah, conceptually, you want to be in the widest gamut and the highest resolution, and, we work with, uncompressed, huge 16-bit, whatever the EXRs, big files that are, super, we have super flexibility with. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to get your I feel like there's a resurgence of interest in black and white. And I know, you work a lot with Bradley Cooper, you did Maestro. You just finished working on Ripley with Steve Zaillian.
Nightmare Alley too was black and white too.
And I know that you were really instrumental in kind of encouraging Guillermo del Toro to do a black and white version of Nightmare Alley. I'm curious, what does black and white do for you creatively as a storyteller that makes you excited about working?
Just for certain things, it's super powerful. I mean, again, Bradley and I we talk about it a lot with Maestro. He had a whole concept in his head about how things were going to go, and period to period. Black and white it's like anything. It's like a film stock. It's a format that is used for storytelling. And what's the best way to do that? What's the intention of the creative people on the film, along with some of the artists that are working on it? And again, displaying black and white in Dolby Vision is amazing, because you get really deep black and whites. I mean, black and white on a Xenon projector in P3 blacks are gray.
They're gray. Yes.
They're gray. People don't realize that. And if I sometimes, when I'm in here, I just hold my fist up into the light, because the fist looks black on the screen and all the rest of the black.
Because you're casting a shadow.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
On the screen, yeah.
So you show that difference, and you're like, that's black. But in Dolby, it's black, just like the shadow. So it's a big difference. And it's, again, inherently more powerful when you're replicating what you should be seeing. So, it's a great medium with which to tell a story. And he shot on black and white film too, and color film that we made black and white. But in general, it's just a beautiful, format. I just love it. I always have. One of my favorite stocks was this. I think it was 7216, if I remember. It's reversal black and white stock. Harris Savides used to use it a lot with me, and it was just gorgeous. I just loved it. Had the texture of 16, but this incredible sharpness and clarity.
And inky
Yeah,
blacks.
super inky. Yeah, it was just gorgeous.
I've been going to a lot of film festivals. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of 4x3 from a lot of young filmmakers. So I'm kind of curious, what trends do you see happening from an image perspective in our business?
I think they come and go. Unfortunately, I've created some of them myself, but I think...
What trends have you created?
I've been mocked, 25 years ago for doing, green, like a lot of green stuff and various different things. But I think the trend these days with all the digital photography is more cinematic. Old lenses, film emulation LUTs to give you the profile of a print or a low contrast print or a high contrast print across process reversal or a whatever it is. And so you just have to, again, it's all about creative intent and what people want. And you have to talk about it and experiment. And part of a lot of successful projects is, emanates through experimentation. Not even sometimes knowing what you're going to get. There's sometimes I push things too much just to see what happens because it will spark something else in my head that might lead me somewhere else. When I used to do commercials, this was my thing. I always did this. I would, when they used to cut an egg, I'd have the commercial, a 30-second commercial, and let's say 40 shots on this cut roll, and I'd have them, the lab, Deluxe, make a print, a low contrast print, a high contrast print, various different prints, maybe 3 or 4, to get just different suggestions from the lab process and the inherently beautiful film look. And then we'd either sometimes go with the prints, we'd mix the prints, or because the neg had more range, I'd stay with the neg, but emulate some of the print looks. And so it's the same sort of concept, but we as an artist have to come up with that and show people what the capable possibilities are. And they're endless. They're basically endless. Whatever is in your head, you can show pretty quickly these days. And then there are tools that give you the ability to do more visual effectsy stuff in a room, but that's all, that's sort of also pretty cool, obviously, and enhances our product offering. But in general, it's, the power to create whatever is in your head is very, very possible now with what we have. So it's pretty exciting.
And I can only imagine, I know a little bit about the changes that you've seen, over the course of your career, because I know that you started doing home video versions from cut negative. And I remember, in my early days at Propaganda, some of these directors like Michael Bay, Dominic Sena, Spike Jonze, they came out of they came out of digital video, and then they'd make an independent feature, and I'd take them to whatever the lab was where we were timing, and there was just this crestfallen moment when they were like, "What do you mean I can only adjust 3 colors and density on a scene by scene basis?" It was just heartbreaking for them.
It was heartbreaking, but in response to that, I'd say I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to experience all of the lab color timing that I did and the film processing that I learned and went through, because, and also colored film in labs before, to a minor degree, because, and I befriended a lot of those guys because our prints had to match what we were doing when we were doing the DI,
That's right.
So I became very friendly with a lot of these guys and girls. And
you're talking about the color timers from the lab.
And it was really important to understand how things worked and how film would react under different circumstances, and then how you can manipulate it. So in my experience, I'm super grateful that I sort of grew up through that period, because I wouldn't give it up for the world, because I learned so much. And a lot of our lookup tables, our color profiles that we create ourselves here are sort of manipulated and managed through that experience that I had with film itself in the labs.
In a very analog world.
Correct. And so, and you see that with sound too. A lot of people, the record player versus the, so, but again, very happy with where we are now. And I like the fact that film survived, and I've encouraged that, and it's sort of, again, what's best for the project.
Right.
And so it's great.
So you're obviously one of the leading colorists in the industry, but you're also the co-founder and CEO here at Company 3. And so I can only imagine that you spend a lot of time thinking about talent development and bringing up the next generation of colorists. Can you talk about your approach to mentoring and how you feel about that?
Well, I can name 20 people, not only within the company, but in other companies that have come from Company 3 and either were my assistants or worked with us and worked through other people. Great people at this company like Tom Poole, our Chief Creative Officer, and Stefan Sonnenfeld and Jill Bogdanovich and Tim Masick, and I mean, I can go on and on. Jean Clement was in London. We have great people who are all about mentoring and bringing up the next generation, if you will.
What do you look for? What makes a good colorist?
Well, it's an interesting process, and it's not that easy, and we are very discerning and not the easiest to get through to the point where you're that junior colorist / then colorist, then senior colorist. But we do it well and we encourage it. And I think more now than ever, it's super important. Again, it's a team sport. You can't do a big, when I did Guardians, we have 9 rooms going at the same time. We have all formats going at the same time. So I have amazing team members, Parker, Adam, Human. We have all these great people who assist and work with me as a teammate and colleague to help us accomplish the incredible delivery schedules that we have for these big films. So in all those all those movies and all those circumstances, people are learning, whether it's the producers, assistants, colorists, assistant colorists, junior colorists, delivery folks, distribution, data engineers, client service is a huge part of our job and our company, and I think we have the best client service on the planet. It's just all of that comes together, and anybody at this company, no matter what they do, can move around in location or in job description, because that's what we encourage. We're not just a group of artists doing color. We're a big business comparatively. I think the best business. We have the most fun. We have a great culture. And more importantly, we all have fun. Yeah. And you have to have fun. If you don't have fun, there's no point. That's why I left to start this company. So I wasn't enjoying myself at another company. I wasn't treated well. I wasn't treated fairly or respectfully. And honestly, if they had, I probably wouldn't have started the company.
Where you see things going, are you excited about the future of our business and where things are going? There's been a lot of conversation about AI. How do you see that affecting your part of the business?
Yeah, I think AI, we've embraced it. We're hiring somebody that specializes in certain things that we need them for. And with respect to how AI can help our business, I don't see it disrupting us and putting us out of business in any way. Like, people are afraid of that, especially in visual effects. But I see it more as a helpful tool, a helpful process that we can use to enable our business to be better and to be more efficient and to run smoother. And we have a whole lot of color data that we do on a daily basis that could create really great learning models. And we're really already starting to work on things that we can do with that. And I've not just looked at the coloring aspect of it, but there's a lot of redundancy and repetitive tasks that machine learning and not necessarily AI, but you can help again make the company more efficient. Get
to the creative stuff quicker.
Yeah, or with deliverables or with things like that, and we've already incorporated a lot of that. I'm not afraid of that at all. I'm super excited about that. It's really, honestly, it's not that we're going to replace people. People who aren't knowledgeable about that stuff will be the ones here, not the ones who are scared of it and don't want to learn it. Right. So that's what I see. I don't see it as a replacement. I see it as you just got to know more to be able to work within those the benefits that those things provide to us, and that's what we're finding out, and it's actually quite exciting and cool, and in a lot of ways are going to make our lives a lot easier, less manual labor, so to speak, for producers and various other people in certain tasks. But like I said, we're so nuanced that I don't see any sort of real disruption. Just excited about
existential threat.
Yeah, no existential threat, but I do see it as a very helpful tool for us in a lot of different ways. So, and we've already gone through the process. I mean, this months ago, we've been doing this for the last year. Super sort of deep dive into what it can mean for us. So yeah, excited. And in general, the Sphere has some really great opportunities, huge high resolution stuff, very complex things. Vision Pro, we're deep into, and Apple always is cutting edge, and they have all sorts of new things that are out there, and new business opportunities and new places.
You've always got to be exploring.
I'm on a road trip starting Sunday, all over Europe and the Middle East. So, yes, we've already met for a long time, and we continue to, and that's part of my job. That is my job, besides being a colorist. So. Listen, this is all I've ever done. This is my baby, I have 5 girls, 5 kids that I love very much, and this is another one of them that I love very much too. One of my kids works here. She's a flame artist, and she does cool stuff here. And amazing. I like that. I want people to feel like their families can be involved, and it's a great, like I said, it's a fun company. I wouldn't do anything else. I've always wanted it to just be that place where people were inspired, come to work in a beautiful studio, do incredibly creative work, be inspired and have fun and enjoy life. Well, that's what it's all about.
We certainly appreciate you letting us come in and take over your space today and talk with you for our 200th episode. It's such a pleasure to finally
congratulations, and I hope you get another few hundred.
I hope so too.
The next few years, so that's great.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you.
Many thanks once again to Stefan for joining us on the podcast today, and for Company 3 for your hospitality. You have an amazing facility here. If you'd like to check out some of Stefan's work, just put a movie on and chances are he worked on it. But some of his upcoming projects are Jackpot from director Paul Feig, Uglies from McG, and the upcoming Dune Prophecy series. If you like this conversation, good news! We have 199 other episodes where we talk with some of the biggest artists and filmmakers in Hollywood, discussing how they use technology to tell their stories. And there's many, many more episodes to come. So please be sure you're subscribed to Dolby Creator Talks. You can find links to our show on all the major podcasting platforms, including the video version on YouTube, in our show notes. Or you can simply search for Dolby, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're curious to know more about the Dolby Institute, head on over to dolbyinstitute.com. There you'll find information about all of our programs. You can access the entire library of episodes of this podcast, and you can sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, this is Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Our producer and editor is Michael Coleman. Our camera operators today are Yuki Noguchi and Christian Klein. Our executive producers are Amanda Schneider and Jack Ferry, with additional editing by Matt Nixon. And our production sound mixer is Chris O'Mai. And our production coordinator is Karen Marroquin. Thanks for joining us.